Okay, bonjour tout le monde. Rodrigue, if it's okay, then I would just start now. Um,
Please go ahead. Thank you.
okay, thank you very much. Okay, welcome to this webinar. I'm really glad and happy to be here. My name is Lennart Mörstedt. I work for GIZ. That's the German Development Corporation, or at least part of it. I've been working in Kigali for about 3.5 years now. Working on different projects with always a focus on peace building. And I'm very excited about organizational development. So that's one of our core things that we do in our projects. We work with partners, we work with ministries, we work with civil society organizations, but we also work, for example, with universities and their partners on organizational development. And I've been very excited to hear that in December you will have a couple of days where in person you learn about organizational development. And this webinar today is to give a bit of a glimpse on what it is, to put some light on some of its aspects, to get to know some of its tools, but everything as a preparation for December. And in December, unfortunately, I will be in Colombia because my wife and I, we are expecting our second daughter. So I will not be there in person, but my colleague David, who's maybe even more an expert on organizational development, he will be there and he will go through the different tools with much more time and in person, which is nice. Today it will be online, and I have been thinking about different activities we could do, and I came to the conclusion that sometimes it's a bit difficult to do this online and to form groups, discussion groups online, and then come back into the bigger group. So the activities we will do today, I would ask you to do them on a piece of paper that maybe you have nearby, to grab a pen now already, so that later on when we do the task and the activities, we can do this together without losing time. And please always feel free to post questions into the chat. I will also post some polling questions into the chat, and then you can vote. And whenever something is unclear, whenever maybe also the connection is broken and you want to have some clarification, please feel free to come in anytime. It's no problem. We can stop. We have some time today, and we also don't need to answer maybe every question and every aspect of organizational development, as it's a very broad field. There will be time in December, and I hope that all of you are also taking part um, in those trainings. So I'm happy to be with YENA, with the network. I'm happy to be with CRUSP. I'm happy to be with you. And I would start, and whenever you have a question, please let me know. So today the objectives would be to get a bit of a very general understanding of what organizational development means, and also for you to know why it could matter for your network, for YENA. But it not only matters for YENA, it of course also matters for every organization you might be working for, and even maybe groups that you're part of, clubs that you're part of, or even your family, you can also see as an organization. So I guess when you're an expert in organizational development, then you have a lot of tools ready for your professional life, but also for your private life. We want to explore the systemic nature of organizations. So organizations are not just single actors, they always act in a system. And we want to take a look at some practical tools for organizational development. Then when there is an organizational development process, that means always change, and change also always causes some resistance. And we want to briefly talk about how to recognize this and how it can also be managed. So how to take away the fear of change from the people you might be working with. And then also looking at December, where you will have the real training, we would like to identify one or maybe also more areas where you can focus on in your organization or in your life until December, where you can work on, and that you can then bring into the training in December. For this, I would like to know what your organization's biggest challenge is right now. And I would copy that or copy the different answers into the chat. And you please pick one of those. Maybe take 2-3 minutes to reflect. And if you think, okay, that's something that applies to the place that I'm working at or that I'm a part of, then please feel free to like this answer. I'm not sure if everybody in the room can do that too. Feel free to also talk directly. Okay, I would give you 2 minutes to reflect on what the biggest challenge is of the organization you're working in right now. And then when you know what it is, please feel free to like the answer that applies to your organization.
Thank you, Lena. I'm in the room at Protestant University of Rwanda. We have seen the same question, liking, hating, the name of the people I see in front of me.
Sorry, I could not understand you.
I was saying that the people who are in the room cannot access this chart, but we can still have discussions and benefit. I will be writing their comments. The comments.
Okay, from what I grasp from your interventions, there probably are people in the room that can't access the call. So you would maybe just reflect for 2 minutes on the place that you're working at or the organization you're part of, and think about for 1 minute what the biggest challenge is. Feel free to write it on a piece of Does someone want to reflect on? You don't need to name the organization. You don't need to name the place you were working for or what you were thinking of. But is one of those challenges, does it sound familiar to you? Does anybody want to come in and reflect a little bit on what the biggest challenge of your organization is right now?
Hello,
Okay.
can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, all right. Looking to what you have been wrote here, like weak communication, chaotic process, and low motivation, they are familiar because you could see to the organization that even dependence on few people, like those who fund us, they look familiar. Like they are mainly some challenges that you can see in the organization I'm on.
If you would have to pick one, which would be the one you would say that's something I would like to work on with my organization?
First of all, will be dependence on few people.
Okay. Thank you. Any more reactions? Okay, that's fine. Thank you very much for the feedback. Whatever you might have been thinking about when you saw these different answers, all of them can be tackled with organizational development. So all of these things are very common in nearly every organization. It happens very often that many people come together, they have a certain purpose, but it's unclear who is doing what, who's responsible for what. It's often the case that there's weak communication, so people don't know what to do because nobody clearly tells them what the task and the mission should be. And then, as our colleague said, dependency on few people. That's also something that we often see in organizations. Maybe even in the organization I'm working for, I would also say it happens too often that if one or two people are gone and leaving the organization, or if they are on leave, then you can see that it doesn't work anymore. And that's a problem. An organization, a system works better if it doesn't depend on just a few people. And this goes also hand in hand with often chaotic processes. So let's say procurement, if it's not clear how you buy a table for your office, who's responsible, where you need to hand in this process, who's taking care of what, then you have a problem. If you depend on one person to buy this table, then you will not buy this table if this person is on leave. So this goes hand in hand. And of course, all of those points can also lead to low motivation. If your staff, if your colleagues are not motivated enough, then you can have great processes. You can have maybe a great idea on what your organization should do, but you have a problem. You will not reach your goals. Thank you. So the point is, all of these things are very common, and all of these points can be addressed with organizational development. So what is organizational development? There are millions of definitions, so I try to keep it short. So OD is a planned systematic process introducing tools and methods that help leaders and staff improve effectiveness, efficiency, and learning. So the point here is a systematic process. So this is not just one intervention. Organizational development is not talking to one person, giving one training, focusing on communication or focusing on HR processes or focusing on another aspect of an organization, but to look at the whole organization, its people, its processes, all its elements, and is analyzing it and designs interventions to improve the system. And in a way, the purpose is to help an organization to learn how to change themselves. So it's not something where a consultant comes in from McKinsey or whatever, analyzes what's going wrong, makes a long list of to-dos for everyone involved, and then the organization has to get to work. It's more a process where, for example, if you are an organizational developer, you go to your own organization, you all work together on analyzing what's not going perfectly well, and then you make a plan on an intervention and you help your organization to grow. So why does it matter for a network like YENA, but also for every other organization or every other network? A network is only as strong as its single members. So if you have strong organizations and you focus on improving the organizations that are part of the network, you will also have a stronger network. But you can also focus with organizational development rather on the network itself, on the level of the network. Because if there are weak links between the different, maybe strong organizations, then you don't really have an added value of a network. So you need to work on how there's communication between the organizations. A link can also be the level of knowledge you have about the other organizations. If you, for example, have one member in your network that is very strong in improving livelihoods in Eastern DRC, and the organization in Rwanda in who really doesn't know, then you have a problem. Then you can't really make use of the network. So that is meant with weak links affect everyone. And then if you have organizational development processes within your network, you also can build credibility, sustainability, and trust, because You look at the different parts of your network. You share information about each other, so you get to know each other. You design interventions together on how to improve. And that process, as a side effect, has that you trust each other much more. So in total, organizational development for a network like YENA has 2 layers. It works on the individual members, makes them more effective, makes them stronger, and it aligns also the network in a more efficient way. So if you as members of a network or an organization become experts in organizational development, you support your organization, you become very valuable for them, and you also can support whatever network your organization is in, for example, YENA. So I would like to tell you a little story about organizational development. I hope you can hear me well. Maybe you've heard this story many, many times. Please bear with me. I would just briefly read the story. I would invite you to, for example, close your eyes if you want, but you can also keep them open, of course. I would read you the story, and in the end, we can reflect on what this tells you about organizational development. So the story is called The Parable of the Blind People and the Elephant. Once upon a time, there was a group of blind men and women who heard that a strange animal called an elephant had been brought to their town. None of them knew what an elephant was, so they decided to find out by touch. Each person approached the elephant and reached out a hand. The first woman who touched the side of the elephant said, "An elephant is like a great, great wall." The second man, touching its tusk, disagreed. No, it's like a spear." The third woman, who had grasped the trunk, exclaimed, "You are both wrong. It's like a thick snake." The fourth man, feeling a leg, protested, "Nonsense. An elephant is like a tree trunk." The fifth woman, touching the ear, said, "It feels like a big fan waving in the air." And the sixth man, holding the tail, laughed. "You're all mistaken. An elephant is like a rope." Soon they began to argue, each insisting that their version was the truth. Voices rose and confusion filled the air. Then a sighted traveler passing by heard the commotion. He stopped and said, "Each of you is right, but each of you is also wrong. You only touched a part of the elephant. If you put your pieces together, you'll see the whole truth." And so the blind men and women realized that understanding requires listening, sharing perspectives, and seeing beyond one's own limited experience. Okay, anybody in the chat or anybody in the classroom? Do you see a connection between what you've heard so far about organizational development and the story you just heard? Okay, it's probably a bit difficult given the setting. I can give you a bit of an explanation what the story is about and what it has to do with organizational development. So the idea is in the story that as long as you don't see the whole animal, you will not know what it is. If you only see a part of it, you will not understand the whole animal. If you go similar to the elephant is the iceberg. So there's another metaphor. that we like to use as organizational developers. So when you work for an organization or when you see an organization at a conference, if you see, for example, the CEO of a company speaking, we're still at the part of what organizational development is and how it sees an organization. And organizational development sees an organization as a system that combines. In this case, it looks at 6 different boxes. So it says that every organization, whether it's a company or a CSO or a university, has a certain purpose. So you either produce something and you want to make money, that would be a private company, or you have seen a certain need in society and you want to fix it, you want to improve it. That often would be an NGO or a CSO, or you have the purpose of structure of an organization. You also have a certain reward system. A classical one would be a salary. So everybody who's working for this organization expects a salary or expects some kind of remuneration. But there are also other types of rewards that an organization can give to its members. For example, capacity development, trainings, or maybe it's also just being part of this organization, working together with gifted colleagues, having a sense of community, contributing to a common good. Those are also rewards an organization can give. And then you have helpful mechanisms. So basically a system in place, processes in place where these different structures work with each other. You might have meetings, you have a general assembly once a year, you might have a dual fix with your boss, you might have certain processes for procuring something, for how you do things, basically. And all of that also pays into relationships. So between the different organizations, between the individuals in the organizations, we have certain types of relationships. Those are not friendships, but those are working relationships. And all of that is under an umbrella of some kind of leadership normally. It can be a hierarchical leadership, so you have these mentioned 1 or 10 bosses, but it can also be that you have a more communal approach. That, for example, you have a board of colleagues, and every 6 months you change the people that are part of this board and take the decisions. Or you maybe for different processes, you have different experts that have the mandate to take the decisions. And you also have something like moral leadership within the organization that not often comes with a title. You might have 2, 3 people in mind in your organization that you look up to. That might not be the ones that are the bosses, but the ones who have experience, who have knowledge, who are leading by example. And all of that would also pay into leadership. And then, of course, an organization is not working just alone and individually. There's an outside environment. There are your clients. There are competitors that do the same, and you want to be better than them. There might be the government that is setting the rules for your activities, and you want to adhere to those rules. But there's also the government who might support your organization. There are development partners that work with you. There are also outside factors outside of your control. If, for example, the political decisions decides that certain organizations have to pay way more taxes than before, then that's a threat to your organization, etc., etc. So that just means you have your system, they're in a vacuum. It's also part of a wider context, of a wider outside. And that's how organizational development looks. Normally does it in a systemic loop. So in the beginning, there's the desire to improve or change something. So an organization doesn't necessarily need to have big problems, but as you know, every organization, every place where you've ever been can be improved. So that's the approach of organizational development. There's always something to improve. And if you have the desire to do so, then that's a good starting point or a necessary starting point for OD. So once you had the desire, you start investigating the problem. You probably, as an OD practitioner, you would do interviews with key personnel inside the organization. You would investigate the problem. You would define a need to change. If, for example, your organization is developing amazing approaches to support peace in the region, but somehow you don't reach your target population, you don't reach the people you actually want to do this for, then that would be a bit of a problem and you would have a need to change. So then you would not have to work on your approaches, but you would have to work on how you reach the people you actually want to reach. And in investigating this problem would be the second step in the cycle. And then once you've investigated the problem, you explore solutions, real need is, and then you change, for example, your communication style towards that group. And then you implement your intervention. You would design communication products. You maybe give trainings to your finance staff if the problem is there. You sit all together and you decide on how you want to communicate with each other, because you might discover that there's a problem in the communication between the different parts, etc., etc. So this could take many different shapes and forms, and that's also what makes OD so interesting. And then once you've done your intervention, you also need to evaluate. Did it actually change something? You talk maybe to the same people again. You see, okay, has something changed? 1 year ago, we had developed a system to tackle a certain problem. Is this problem solved? Yes or no? And if no, then you go back and you redesign and you do it again. And even if you change it, you still come back to the first point, because you might have still the desire to improve something else or to desire to improve further. So then you can start again, and basically you can always continue with improvement. And that's what OD also is. It's not just one intervention and then you fix something and it's fine. Normally every organization should be in a continuous effort to improve their processes, to improve level of knowledge among staff, to improve coordination with partners, maybe also with competitors, etc., etc. So it's a continuous intervention cycle that, if the organization is alive and working well and has motivated staff, is never ending and always continues. This also leads us to the core principles. Yes, core principles of organizational development. Some of them I've also mentioned already. So there's no intervention, no measure without a diagnosis. There's no intervention without participation of the people that work for that organization. You will always need to have them on board. You will need to get the information from them. You need to tailor interventions to the needs of the people working in that organization. And for that, you need participation. Holistic approach. Yes, you don't just fix one little issue. You don't go and improve the fact sheet of the organization. And after that, everything is fine. You look at the whole organization. You also need to communicate transparently. So everybody who's working for that organization should not be in fear of that change. It's not about letting people go. It's about improving the organization to the benefit of all. And for that, you need transparent communication. And then you need a step-by-step planning to do your intervention. You do feedback loops. So you always go back to the organization, tell everyone what's happening, and check if you can improve something. Normally, I would like to ask and discuss those principles with you and see what's most important in your opinion, and if you've made experiences with those principles. I'm not sure if you can hear me properly, but if you do and you have a comment, please let me know, and let me know. Please let me know if one of those core principles resonate with you and which one it is. Okay, I could just
Hello, can
share
I have
what
my
Yes,
intervention?
please. Yes, please.
Right. All right. Thank you so much. To my little understanding, I don't see any of them as most important because I can see that they are complementarity. There is a complementarity in all of them. Because I believe if you have a transparent communication but you did not do diagnosis, that intervention will not have will not reach to its goal. So I think all of them are needed and they complement each other. So if one is missing, I think the intervention you want to do will not be able to reach its goal or to satisfy the goal of the organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, of course. That's perfect answer. Thank you very much. I always have a strong focus on transparent communication because I feel like that's where often those processes don't work out because everything else is fine, but it's not being communicated transparently. And it leads to a lot of resistance. And then in the end, an intervention fails. But you are absolutely right. This is as important as all the other ones. That's just the part that I think often is forgotten. But if one of those things are missing, as you said completely correctly, then it's very likely that the process will fail. If you don't diagnose what the actual issue is, you will tackle something which is not the root cause of the problem you have. If people don't participate, you will not get the information you need. If you only tackle a certain aspect in your organization, you will not fix the root cause. As I said, if you don't communicate transparently, you will lose the support of the members of that organization. If you don't plan step by step, you will get lost. And if you don't include feedback loops, you will have a problem in the long run because you might go into the wrong direction and you have no chance of correcting it. So thank you very much for the intervention. I couldn't have said it better. Thank you. Continuing, I also said we will look at what it does to an organization and to the emotions of people. Change people are part of an organization and they're being told that there's a change process coming, led by organizational developers, then most certainly there will be some kind of shock and denial about the issue. There might even be resistance. There might be many people that say, okay, but we've been doing things for 10 years in this and that way. Why should we change things? Why should we do it? Isn't this just a waste of time, a waste of money? Let's not do it. Some are also scared, and they often are not. It's also very justified, of course, to be worried about job security, etc., etc. So that leads to resistance. But if you do it in the way we described it before, then in most cases, this resistance will, in the long run, lead to acceptance. So people will see the added value of fixing first smaller issues in, for example, communication, and then looking at the bigger pictures. And in the long run, through smaller successes, there will be acceptance. There are so-called 4 principles for dealing with resistance in those situations. And basically, the bottom line here is to see it as a wind that you can use for sailing. There is no change without resistance. That is true. But every resistance also carries a message. So if people resist, it's always a good idea to listen. There might be a reason why people resist. Maybe they are afraid to lose their job. Maybe they are afraid to lose their job. Maybe also they have a good reason to not criticize, for example, the leaders of the organization because they fear that they might be getting some trouble. And it's very important to listen to those messages because it also gives you an indication of what might be the issue in that organization. Maybe there's a lack of creativity, but maybe there's also a certain type of leadership where people are not able to openly discuss what the issue is. And that also means that ignoring this resistance will just block the progress. So it's always important to also acknowledge that there is resistance, to address it, and to look for ways on how to work with the people and to make use of that wind that comes against you. Set the sail, go with it, and not against it. So make use of that information. Every resistance also has information for you. Okay, I've talked a lot, and I hope it was kind of clear and you could understand most of it. Also, though maybe the connection is not always the best. But now I have some activities for you, and I hope it's possible. Like I said, I will not divide you into groups and rooms. I don't think that would work out. So I would like to just do these activities with you, and you can grab a pen and a piece of paper. And now I would give you about 10 minutes, and you can draw a Venn diagram. So I would like you to put your organization in the middle and then draw as many actors that you think your organization is working with around it. And the more important the other actors are, the bigger you make it. The closer you work with those actors, the closer you make it towards your organization. And then you can also think about different symbols that symbolize the relationship that your organization has with those actors. So one example would be, let's say you work for a university, and the other actors would be another university that's partnering with you. It could be GIZ that you're working with. It could be the government that, of course, you will have some kind of relationship with. And I would like you to, yes, put your organization in the middle. It can be the network YENA, but it can also be the place you work at. It can be also the football club you're playing football at. Everything you can think of, or what you would like to improve, and you put it in the bubble in the middle, and then you draw the other actors around it. And that would be the first activity. So please just do it on a piece of paper. If there are any questions, I'm here, and I will give you 10 minutes to do that, just to understand your organization a bit better. What do you think? Should we give it 1 or 2 more minutes and then we come back together? Or is everybody ready? Okay, I will give it 1 more minute and 57, I'm back. Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone want to share what he or she draw? And if there's maybe something that you found out about your organization and the network it's working in? Okay, then I can maybe share what I found out, because I also wrote down what my organization is doing. And I saw that there are many organizations that are doing similar things as GIZ, for example, in Rwanda, in Burundi, in Eastern DRC. But we only know that they exist. We don't really interact so much. And by writing all of those names down that are around our organization, but seeing that there's no real close connection, I saw that might be an issue, because if we would know what, say, some Belgian organizations, some Dutch organizations are doing in our sector, we could work much more closely with them. We could avoid doing the same thing in the same place. We could build on maybe something they have done in the past and that we could now do. And to me, from time to time, it helps to put my organization in the middle of something and write down who else is in the sector and is doing things with us. So please, just an activity here, but if you want to support the organization you're working in, it might be a good idea to also take your colleagues and do this together as a group task, and to see who else is there, who you're working with which organization you maybe have trouble, if you could fix that trouble, with which organization you have potential to work with, but you don't do it. And this is all to analyze the environment you're working in and to see avenues for change so that you can better cooperate and have less conflicts or less negative conflicts with other actors. Okay, we have several more activities. All of them typical tools for organizational development. And if you apply them in your organization, you might find out something about what you're good at and where you maybe have some potential for improvement. So now I would like to do a SWOT analysis with you. Please, again, take your piece of paper or a new piece of paper, take 10 minutes, and again, think about YENA, the network, or the organization you're working in, or the football club you're playing for, the tennis club, the maybe the group of friends you have where you try to start certain initiatives. And please just write a long line over the paper from top to bottom in the middle and then from left to right so that you will have these 4 boxes. And in the top left box, you write all the strength that you can think of that this organization has. Maybe great people, smart people, a lot of drive, a lot of positive emotion, everything that comes to your mind. And then on the top right corner box, you do the opposite. You think about what potential weaknesses you have. Maybe you have all these smart people, but they don't really work together. Everybody's doing their own thing. And then we go down, and on the bottom right corner, you write down the threats to your organization. So, for example, that you're running out of money, that the political situation is a problem and you can't work with your partners from a different country. All of those threats that you can imagine. And then also write opportunities. If you think about your organization, where are maybe strengths that you haven't used until now? Where would it be very easy to address a weakness, but you haven't done it? But if you would do it, then your organization would thrive. So please, you can also think about a specific area in your organization: communication, management, fundraising, monitoring. You can start, for example, also with your work, where your expertise is. And please, I give you maybe 7 minutes until 9 pass, and then we come back together.
Please move to the right slide because we are clear at the, yes, that one. Thank you.
I'm sorry, I could not understand you, unfortunately. The top, what was the question? Come again? Okay, thank you very much. I hope you are all able to identify many, many strengths of your organization and also some opportunities, and maybe here and there also a weakness, because there's no organization without a weakness. And also maybe some external threats and what you can do about it. Does anybody want to share what he or she found out about the organization at hand through filling out this analysis? Also feel free to type into the chat. And again, I can also share what we normally do with this analysis. So it's always important to find out where the strengths are, so you know what to build on. You know what's already working well, where you maybe don't need to change too many things, but it's always the question with the strength: are you aware of it, and do you make use of it? So you can also look at all these strengths that your organization has and think about, is there something we could do on top to really make use of it? Or is it maybe just something we don't use? So for example, very smart people. If in your university, if in your network you have very smart people, but they're not in the right place, they don't have a mandate, then that's an issue. So then the strength becomes a lost opportunity. Weaknesses, of course, that's something you can address. You can think about every weakness. Is that something we can change? Is that in our hands? If we don't communicate well, if we think our leaders are not up to the task, then you can change things. You can change the system you're working in. You can change individuals. You can work on capacities that need to be strengthened, etc., etc. Same with threats. You would go normally through your threats and you would take a look, is that something that's in our hands that we can mitigate from the beginning and avoid? If not, is there something our organization can do to not be too much at risk by this threat? And opportunities, similar with strength, are we making use of those opportunities? If there's an opportunity to, for example, do a closer cooperation with a similar university somewhere else, are we doing that? What can we do to make use of that connection? So you could go through all these different things that you write down. Also, like our colleague that posted it in the chats, that listed some strengths. I don't see it anymore, but that was a great beginning to take a look at your organization, to analyze where you should intervene, if you should intervene, what you can strengthen, and what you can mitigate. I would also like to briefly touch upon the question in the chat, how to evaluate the strength of an organization. How can you see that an organization is performing well? It's actually quite a complex question because it's not so easy. It really depends on what the organization is doing, what the purpose is of the organization. And I would agree also with the answers in the chat already that say that it's a combination of many different things. If you have a company that's doing very well, producing washing machines, selling many washing machines, making a lot of money, that might be great. But still, if the people working in the company are not happy, are not making use of their potential, then in the long run, most probably this company will not produce the best washing machines anymore, and it will go down. So it's a combination of many different factors. It's a combination of, does this organization have a clear vision? Is it known to the outside world what the vision is of this company or this organization? Do the people understand that work for this organization what the purpose is? Do they have a bigger picture of what their contribution is? to the bigger purpose? Are these people happy? Are they satisfied with their work? Are they satisfied with leadership and the communication coming from leadership? Do they see a future? How are they being seen from the outside world? What is the image of this organization? Are they communicating clearly? All of these factors you can analyze. You can do interviews from the inside. You can do interviews with people looking at the organization. You can take a look at the numbers. Are they financially healthy, etc., etc. So it's a combination of many different factors. And if one or two of those factors are in a good place, that not necessarily means that this organization is fit for the future. It needs a holistic, healthy picture. Thank you for the question. Very good question indeed. Now I see the strength again. Okay, so the strength of the YENA network is the availability and the access of youth in the Great Lakes region. Limited resources, weakness. Opportunity is partnerships like the one with GIZ, and the third is the insecurity in the region, limiting advocacy and participation. Yes, thank you very much. That, in a nutshell, probably is what many people would agree with. It's very, very impressive to see the strength of YENA. Having so many organizations, so many members working together from all over the Great Lakes region, having access to youth, that is something YENA can absolutely build on. And having limited resources and also access to all areas of the Great Lakes region, that's something you can discuss also in December, how to address that weakness and how to make use of opportunities like partnerships, but maybe also the partnerships with additional partners throughout the region would be an additional opportunity. And yes, insecurity in the region, of course, is a threat that is not in your hands, in our hands, but or at least not directly. In the long run, it might be because the youth is the future of the region. And if the youth decides to go a different way, then there's of course a lot of potential to also address this directly. But for now, you could look at how it limits advocacy and participation and how you could mitigate that. Are there maybe other spaces, other digital spaces you can use? Are there other ways of doing advocacy and participation that you haven't explored yet? That would be something like a mitigation measure to this threat. Thank you very much for that example. With that, I would jump to the next tool. We have, as it's a webinar, we want to become a bit or stay practical, and then you can also let us know. We have prepared some feedback questions, how you want to design the training in December. Do you want to learn more tools? Do you want to go into more detail? And this is just to give you a glimpse on what's possible. So the next activity would be to choose one change that you would see in your network, in your organization. And then you make a list on the left side, listing supporting forces and factors. And then on the right side, everything that's blocking this positive change. So for example, if you want to increase your network, you want to have additional members in your network, then there are many factors and forces that would support this change and some that block this change. And I would like you to do this now. And I would give you another 7 minutes until 25, just to choose one change that you would like to see in your network, to list everything that's in favor of it and everything that's blocking it. Okay, I'm sure you could all identify maybe one or two changes that you would like to see. I see now the comments. I'm not sure if I understand correctly, as my French is not the absolute best, but I could, if I understand correctly, then the question is if it's not a bit difficult to do this if you're not part of the management team. I would say sometimes even the people in the management team are the ones who have the most difficulties to see the change that's needed, and sometimes the people that are working in the machine room, so to say, are the ones that would actually know what would need to change. And it's part of organizational development to talk to everyone and to exactly also to those key personnel that know how this organization works and that have definitely an idea of what could change. So one possible change could be that employees need to know more about what the bigger picture of the company is. Why are they doing the things they need to do? And that's something that's maybe somebody from the management team doesn't really see. But that's something somebody from the technical level would totally agree to and see as a necessary change. Does anybody want to share the change they would like to see in their organization and maybe name one of the blocking forces that they think they can tackle within the reach of their mandate? Feel free to just unmute and let us know. Also feel free to write it in the chat if you have an idea. Okay, no problem if not, no problem at all. That's also something that's sometimes maybe better or easier to discuss in person, and you will have that time in December. So the reason for this activity, the so-called force field analysis, would be to really get the perspective of the people that work in the organization and to also pick blocking forces. And once you've written them down and once you've thought about what to do about it, you often realize that there is a lot you can do. And I would just, like to encourage you to maybe also after this training, look again at that list, see the supporting forces and think about how you can strengthen them and also look at the blocking forces and maybe pick one that you can work on. It might be the communication that you do yourself. Maybe sometimes you realize you're not communicating in a way that everybody understands. Maybe there's a colleague you can support. Maybe you see there's an issue with the finance department that you're working in. All these things are possible, and please, as everybody who is part of an organization is also part of the solution, maybe you find this one blocking force that you can do something about it, and then in December you can tell your colleagues what you've done about it. You're already getting close to becoming a real expert for your organization and become a supportive organizational developer of this organization. And we would like to go a little bit deeper now into a piano analysis. There's nothing to do with the piano, but it just, I think, makes sense to take the first letters. And then it gets a nice title for this analysis. So again, please take your piece of paper or your phone or whatever you have in your hands where you can write with, and take, let's say, 10 minutes, maybe 7 minutes, maybe 7 minutes enough. I have the feeling you're very quick. So take 7 minutes and look at the P, which stands for products. So what do you produce or contribute? I think it makes sense to take YENA as an example, but if you also work for a different organization as part of YENA or whatever you have in mind, please feel free to take that as the organization you're analyzing. So what is YENA producing? What does it contribute to? What are the incentives? So why do you participate? What do you get out of it? Um, what makes you so engaged in this organization? Then actors, were the key people involved. Maybe we've touched upon this already, so feel free to make this very quick. What are the negotiations? So what are the agreements or norms that guide your work? So is there, for example, a rule book? Do you have a policy for communication? Do you have a policy, HR policy for employees, etc.? Do you have given yourself a vision? That also would be then the O, the orientation. So what is your shared purpose? What is your shared vision? If I would ask individually, each and everyone who's part of YENA, would you all answer the same? Is it peace in the region? Is it working together to create a better future for youth? What would it be? So please go through the P, the I, the A, the N, and the O with your piece of paper. Take 10 minutes and write down. And if there's maybe something where you need to think a long time, where do you think maybe, or maybe there is no incentive, or maybe there are not no clear norms that guide our work, then this already is a bit of a hint on where you could intervene as an organizational developer, where the piano is out of tune. So please take 7 minutes and go through the P, the I, the A, the N, and the O, and then we meet again. Thank you. I'm sure you were all able to write some of those answers down. Is anybody there that would like to share, maybe post into the chat what you have come up with? If not, of course, that's also fine. This is all about the piano. The piano can be playing perfectly well. That would be the case if, for all those things you listed, many different things and everything works well. But normally a piano is not a perfect sync, and you will find out that maybe your contribution could be better. Maybe the motivation of the people, maybe the incentives they get could be better. Maybe you find out that you would need to involve other key people, additional key people. Maybe there are no clear agreements or norms that guide the work. Maybe, yeah, you lack a shared vision. maybe you have a different understanding. Maybe the different members of the network have a different understanding of what it means. And now I see the example of Kitata. Very interesting, yes. So you have a clear answer for all of those points. That is great. So that means there is a piano that works quite well, and you have many good things you can build on. And if we take a closer look in the or if you think about the PDI, the A, the NDO, maybe you will also find some things to work on. So thank you for taking part in this activity. I hope it gave you a bit more insight on the network and also on this method in general. I hope you still have some energy left. There are more activities. We have 2 more, but I know also that at some point energy is up. So also feel free to maybe jump for a second, shake your arms, shake your legs if you feel a bit tired. This is absolutely normal. And before we continue, or while we continue, feel free to do that. Maybe we do activity 7. So I would like you to again take your piece of paper, take your phone, take whatever you have to write on. And now we want to look a bit at processes. As I mentioned in the beginning, organization always consists of different parts, different departments, different people. And all of that needs to somehow work together. And it does so through processes. So I would like you to take one process, for example, from event planning area, from maybe procurement, maybe from a communication perspective. If, for example, let's say there's a training coming up and this is being shared amongst the network, there's always a certain process behind. So please take a minute to think about one of those processes that you have at YENA, and then you draw the steps, how it begins and how it ends, and everything that happens between. So let's, for example, think about an event. How do you plan an event? Somebody might have an idea. You maybe come together in a certain group. Then you decide on how this event should actually take place. You maybe go to somebody who has the mandate to approve. Then it goes back to a planning committee. You plan, you book a venue, etc., etc., etc. This is just one example. You can take whatever process you can think of, something you have been part of, or something you would like to be part of in the future. And then after you've drawn the main steps from start to finish, please write down for every step who is responsible, and not maybe the person, but it's not about blaming anyone, but write down which department needs to do which step or which function needs to do which steps, and where normally delays happen, or where maybe it's not clear who is responsible, or where you see that duplications happen, which means that maybe 2 people are doing the same thing, which is not absolutely necessary. And after you've done that, circle one step that you could improve until the training in December. I hope that's clear. If not, let me know in the chat or directly. Otherwise, I would give you 7 minutes again. You also don't need to include every step, but maybe the 3, 4, 5 main steps, and then we meet again at 52. Yeah, maybe to explain again. You choose one process at your organization. For example, let's say you want to post something on social media. How do you do that? You have the idea to post something on social media. Can you just go and do it, or is there a process behind? And then you take this process and you will just write down step 1, step 2, step 3. For example, step 1 would be to ask the communication department if that's okay to post this and that post on LinkedIn. Then you get the approval, then you write the post, then you send it back to them for a last check, and then they take it and publish it. And for each of those steps, you would write down who's responsible for it. And you can also write down where you see delays, where sometimes things take too long, where maybe two people are doing the same thing. And that would give you an indication on how to improve that process. And as a last step, you could just look at those 4 or 5 steps in this process, circle one step where you think that this is something you could just easily improve. For example, somebody else could write this post, or maybe not 2 or 3 people need to improve, only one person need to improve, and then it would be much easier. Okay, Kitata, thank you very much for that example. Yeah, that's quite clearly what's it's good analysis. Also, Mark. Yes, many different steps. Responsibility and delay, for example, that the HR team delays. Yes, they often have good reasons that maybe not everybody's aware of, but yes, that's a common delay in organizations. You even have a step to improve. Okay, yes, thank you very much. I see you're already becoming organizational developers. Thank you for these 2 examples. For everybody who can read it, please feel free to take a look. Those are really good examples for outlining a process, but also identifying where there might be delays and where there might be issues, and that would give you an indication for an intervention. Thank you very much. I would like to slowly but surely come to the end of our seminar. I had a lot of fun, and I know it's just a little bit less than 2 hours, so we can't really talk about every theory around organizational development, every tool that's out there in the world. I hope you got a bit of the gist of what it can be and what it can also give to your organization, and what you, if you become an organizational developer, what can do to you and your value for the organization. And I would like to tell you that if you followed those activities, you already are an organizational developer. Everybody who's working in an organization and has the mindset to improve things, that sees when there's a challenge, that analyzes it and gives some ideas to themselves or to colleagues, already is an organizational developer. You can study for many years organizational development. You can do 22 PhDs in organizational development, but actually that's not really necessary to be an organizational developer. It's a practical field. When you analyze your system, when you clarify incentives, when you identify expectations and map processes, you are an organizational developer and you've done this today. So before you've been one, and now you are an organizational developer that has some tools at hand to support the people around you. You've begun to see organizations as systems. You practice to do an I diagnosis before you take action. You reflected on relationships and processes and on how your organization can learn and improve. And that means congratulations, you've just taken your first steps as organizational developers within YENA. And there are more steps coming up. You not just took part today, you will also most probably take part in December. So you learned to apply organizational development. You learned some about the tools. You learned about resistance and how to deal with it. And yeah, in this presentation, you saw some tools, and feel free, please, to read, to Google about organizational development. There's a lot online. There are many, many more tools. Feel free to also let us know what you would like to focus on. We have some reflection questions, some feedback questions. Would be good to know from you if you would like to know more theory, if you would like to know more about tools, if you maybe want to work on a concrete case, if you want to improve something around YENA that you think is a bit of an issue, or where you see we have such a great vision, you have such great people, but still there's one thing we still are not successful enough. What could it be? What could be the reason? Please let us know. And then my colleague David would try to incorporate that feedback into the training in December. Before we close, I would like that you just take 1 minute and think about the following question. So in the next few months, one area of organizational development I want to strengthen within YENA or within another organization is ... And please feel free to write it in the chat, or maybe to just write it on your piece of paper to keep it in mind. So one OD area could be communication within our organization, or that we create a stronger vision, or that the incentives become better for us to really engage in the network, or that we need to grow, we are too small. Whatever it is, you learned a lot about organizational development. So please think about one word. So in the next 3 months, one OD area I want to strengthen is, think about one word. Feel free to add it to the chat or to keep it for yourself until December. I give you 1 minute and then we close. Yeah, the 1 minute is also over. So please, just some last words. Thank you very much for having me. It was a pleasure for me. I hope you learned a little bit. I hope it was not too boring. I hope you could follow. Please let me know what you would like to focus on in December. It has been a real pleasure to be with you. I know that all of you do very important work. And we are very happy and proud to be part of it, to be partner of PUR, to be partner of CRUSP, to be partner of YENA. And I wish you all the best in your work. It's very important work. Yeah, think about maybe what you would like to focus on in December, what you can take from it for your organization, which field of organizational development you want to tackle to improve your already amazing network. And then I would be very glad to next time see you in person, because that, of course, is always a different experience. But it's also very, very enriching to have people from different countries in this virtual space together, thinking about how to improve the network in a very strategic and systematic way. Thank you very much for your time, and have a very nice evening. See you very soon.